So sometimes I think about the potentially many different versions of myself, like the me of today, or maybe the me who has already gotten married and has a child, the me who has moved abroad to start a life somewhere else, and the me who would continue to climb the corporate ladder, or the me who would have become a bookstore owner or a cafe owner. So I think about all the micro decisions that I've made throughout my entire life, the schools that I've chosen to attend, the courses that I chose to take, all the internships, the part-time jobs, the social events that I joined or maybe have set out on. Everything has led me to the me that I am today and the path that I'm currently on. So what then makes any reality far better or far worse off than any other? And who can say that the version that I'm living in is the best or worst version? Is there even any inherent meaning in weighing our lives this way? And how can we compare except based on our own internal projections, intuition, and feelings? So unlike playing The Sims, we only have one life and experience time linearly. There is no comparison that we can make that can guide us to hit undo. This is why sometimes I love the theory of parallel universes existing, because if my current consciousness is experiencing my reality today, another conscious me can be elsewhere experiencing another kind of reality. So the very strange thing is, as I am thinking about all these versions of myself, I actually don't think I would be necessarily unhappy in any of these versions. Because if a choice has been made, I trust myself enough to thrive in whatever circumstance I find myself in. And thus, maybe this is what makes choosing even harder, not easier. Because I feel when there is a strong or sufficient push factor, the decision comes quite easily. But when the sole reason for change is digging deep within, hesitation surfaces. When two completely different choices could both lead you to a good life or better life, which do you choose in the end? And so perhaps there is no right choice and there is no perfect choice. There is only a choice that is right for me and one that I can choose with no or minimal regret. Because we spend so much time trying to avoid making the wrong choice, we forget every choice necessarily means giving something up. And that's where I read about the philosopher Kierkegaard, and he posed the problem of what we might call double regret, where every major choice contains the possibility of regret. I think it's quite simple. If you choose path A, you will always wonder what would happen if you chose path B instead, and vice versa. If you chose path B, you will then wonder what would happen if you went on path A instead. So you regret what you chose and then you regret what you didn't choose. But I think what's important here is to know that regret doesn't necessarily indicate or is evidence of a wrong choice made. You can choose the right choice for yourself in that circumstance and still wonder what would happen if you had chosen otherwise. You can love the life you have and still be curious about the life that you didn't lead in the end. You can love someone and always wonder who you might have met if you hadn't fallen in love with that person. So the existence of an alternative doesn't invalidate the life that you choose, and perhaps this is what makes choosing that much more difficult. So we don't just fear making the wrong decision, we fear losing the life that might have existed on the other side of that decision. So this brings me to the next section or paragraph that I had written, which is the fig tree analogy. And I'm sure everyone on the internet is aware of this fig tree analogy from the bell jar, where the narrator sees her life as a fig tree with every fig representing a different possible future. So choosing one means losing all the others and choosing not to experience anything else. So this always brings about hesitation, decision paralysis, and incessant questioning over which is the sweetest fig to choose or pick. So we often spend so long thinking about what is right that we end up standing in place until the opportunities have passed us by and all the figs have withered and fallen to the ground. They are no longer ours for the taking and savouring. Time keeps on passing as we are paralysed by indecision. We desire to live every possible life, but the impossibility of it forces us to make a decision anyway. And thus, the desire to make the perfect choice prevents us from making any choice at all. And perhaps that's the fundamental grief of being human. We have enough imagination to see all the lives we could live, but only have enough time to actually live one. And the fig tree is the emotional experience of double regret. So the problem with perfectionism is that we think if we analyse long enough, we can find that one fig that makes us stop mourning all the others, which is our so-called perfect choice, or the sweetest fig that we aim to choose. But that fig doesn't really exist. Perhaps the proper response isn't how do I find the perfect or sweetest fig? it's which fig do I actually want. And that requires knowing yourself. So maybe you value security, you value financial freedom, you value emotional fulfillment, intellectual curiosity, creativity, family, stability, adventure. And the answer is not universal. This metric is deeply personal. So the perfect choice is but an illusion. You cannot make the right choice until you know what right means to you. I have to decide what I want my life to optimize for, and that requires knowing myself before I can know which fig to pick. I think about this in the context of my own life, and I don't doubt that I can thrive in many different environments. I could always stay in place, have my stable job instead of leaving the corporate sector altogether. But using which metric am I weighing the two options? Is it money? Is it fulfillment? Is it intellectual stimulation? So the problem isn't necessarily that I don't have enough information to make the decision. It's that I haven't decided what I want the decision to optimize for. This requires knowing myself and knowing which outcome makes me feel more fulfilled. What is the kind of discomfort I am willing to tolerate? What are my personal values? What are my priorities right now? What I can afford? What are my non-negotiables? And what am I willing to sacrifice in the process of making this decision? So to answer these questions, we often have to dig a little deeper to understand ourselves well enough to know which trade-offs we are willing to make and what we are willing to forgo in the process of choosing. I think the problem isn't just that we are afraid of choosing wrongly, it's that we don't always know what we are actually choosing for. And so self-knowledge needs to become the antidote, not certainty. Of course, I must also admit that the fig tree assumes that all the figs are equally available to us, but that's not always the case. And sometimes a fig is simply out of reach because everybody has a different fig tree. Having choices in itself is a privilege that not everyone can experience, and having this so-called happy problem of choice is also a luxury. There will always be realities that are not and never will be open to us because of our circumstances, and our choices are often constrained by many different things like money, family, health, geography, social class, disabilities, historical circumstances, and that's why I say that everybody has a different tree. So added to the already complex decision-making process is the question of which life can I afford to have right now. I think it's important to acknowledge this because saying it's never too late to change your life can be a very privileged / tone-deaf thing to say. But it's true that sometimes opportunities do expire and some doors do close for good. And sometimes circumstances also make certain choices impossible, especially in very defining moments of your life. But I do think that within whatever branches are available to us, there is still the aspect of what we value, knowing which fig is the best for us at this point in time across the various attributes that we hold dear to our own hearts, and whether we have the courage to choose one and actually live it with confidence. We don't all get to choose from the same tree, but perhaps we can still ask ourselves which fig among the ones that are available to us is right for us. So what happens to the road not taken? Maybe I had imagined a life where I was an artist or a lawyer or an academic or a parent, but if I had actually taken these paths, I would be encountering entirely different sets of problems and circumstances altogether, and the mind that I would inhabit would be entirely different as well. Maybe in these other realities, I wouldn't even be thinking about all these questions. We romanticize unlived lives because we don't have to experience their difficulties at all. The road not taken is seemingly perfect because it remains far away and simply imaginary. It has not and never will have the chance to disappoint us. We compare our messy, complicated reality with an imagined life that has not been tested or lived. And perhaps this is yet another form of perfectionism. We imagine the alternative without imagining its costs. So instead of asking, should I have chosen that other life, maybe we should be asking, what does the other life represent to us? The path unchosen often represents the parts of ourselves that are not yet developed or invested in. A creative pathway forgone may represent stifled creativity and self-expression. The fantasy of being an academic may be your brain itching for further intellectual stimulation. The yearning to volunteer abroad may be your heart looking for a life more meaningfully led. And with all these in mind, perhaps the other life can always be lived in another way in your current life. Drastic changes and choices don't always have to be made. We don't have to abandon today in pursuit of a different tomorrow. perhaps we can reintegrate the parts of ourselves that we had lost along the way to create an upgraded life 2.0. The unlived life can sometimes illuminate the parts of ourselves that need a little bit more nurturing, and that's all. While some opportunities do expire and you may not be able to recreate the life you have had at 18, you may still be able to create something new at 27, 35, 50, 65, all the way until your life ends. Maybe it's not always possible to choose again, but sometimes it's possible to choose differently from where you are right now. So yes, I think that the objectively perfect choice does not exist. If there are two choices on a scale, it means that the choices each hold some place in your heart, and thus it's up to you to decide for yourself which one holds more importance to you. And perhaps we will always wonder about the fix that we didn't pick in the end, but that doesn't necessarily mean we chose wrongly. It simply means that we are human enough to imagine the lives that we could have led. May we all be able to choose a fig that is special to us and right for us at a time that it is ripe. And most importantly, may we have the courage to actually eat it and savor it.